Have you ever found yourself standing in the frozen dessert aisle, staring at two tubs that look almost identical, one labeled Sherbet and the other Sorbet, and wondered if the difference was just a spelling mistake? They sound similar. They look equally colorful and fruity, and they both seem like perfect treats for a hot day. But once you take a closer look, the textures, flavors, and the overall experience of each dessert tell a completely different story. Today, we're diving into what makes Sherbet and Sorbet unique, why people mix them up, and how to finally tell them apart with confidence, right here on History of Simple Things. Let's start with what they actually are. To begin, let's talk about sorbet. Sorbet is the simpler of the two. It's made with fruit puree, sugar, and water, and that's pretty much the entire recipe. There's nothing creamy in it, nothing heavy, and nothing that gets in the way of the fruit's natural brightness. Because of that, sorbet delivers a clean, sharp flavor that hits your taste buds immediately. A spoonful of lemon sorbet, for example, tastes like a frozen burst of lemon juice that wakes you up instantly. It's bright, intense, and refreshing precisely because there's nothing to soften the flavor. Sherbet, on the other hand, takes that same fruit base, but goes in a slightly different direction. While it also starts with fruit puree and sugar, it includes a small amount of dairy, usually milk or cream. It's not enough to make it feel like ice cream, but it makes a surprisingly big difference. That slight addition of dairy gives sherbet a smoother, creamier texture and a more rounded flavor. It still tastes like fruit, but the edges of that fruit flavor become softer and less intense. In many ways, it feels like the frozen version of a fruity smoothie, lighter than ice cream, but definitely creamier than sorbet. Now that we've covered the basics, let's move on to texture, because this is where the difference becomes even more obvious. Since sorbet doesn't contain any dairy, it freezes into a firm, glossy texture that has a distinct icy bite. When your spoon hits the surface, you often feel a little resistance before it breaks through. And the moment it hits your tongue, you get a cold, refreshing jolt. It's intentionally crisp and icy, almost like eating sweetened, flavored snow. Sherbet, meanwhile, behaves differently in the freezer. Thanks to that little touch of dairy, it becomes softer, smoother, and easier to scoop. The mouthfeel is creamier without feeling rich or heavy. Instead of that immediate icy burst you get from sorbet, sherbet glides across your tongue with a velvety warmth underneath the fruit flavor. It's a blend of freshness and comfort all at once. Moving forward, flavor is another area where the two desserts split paths. Because sorbet has nothing to dilute the fruit, the flavors taste bold and pure. Eating berry sorbet feels like eating the fruit in its most intense form. Every spoonful delivers a clean, strong, straightforward flavor that doesn't hold back. It's the kind of dessert that feels refreshing more than indulgent. Sherbet still keeps its fruity taste, but the dairy changes how the flavor lands. It becomes gentler, smoother, and more mellow. Instead of tasting like the raw brightness of fruit, sherbet tastes like fruit folded through a creamy swirl. It still gives you the essence of the fruit, but with a softer, more soothing edge. It's refreshing, but in a calmer, more comforting way. At this point, you might be wondering, which one is for me? Well, sorbet attracts anyone who wants something light, cold, and invigorating. It's perfect for people who want a refreshing dessert after a heavy meal, or simply prefer fruit flavors without any creaminess. It's also ideal for those who avoid dairy altogether, since sorbet is naturally dairy-free. The experience is more about brightness and freshness than richness or comfort. Sherbet, on the other hand, appeals to people who enjoy fruity flavors but also appreciate a subtle creaminess. It satisfies the craving for dessert without being as rich as ice cream. The texture and flavor feel playful, nostalgic, and comforting. The kind of treat you might remember eating as a kid on a warm afternoon. It's fruity, but with the smoothness that makes it feel like a little reward. Before we go any further, let's clear up a few common misconceptions. One of the biggest issues is the pronunciation. Many people say sherbet, adding an extra R that doesn't actually belong there. The correct spelling is sherbet. The funny thing is, the mispronunciation became so widespread that it appears on menus and in conversations everywhere. But whether someone says sherbet or sherbet, they're referring to the same fruity, slightly creamy dessert. Another misconception is that sherbet is just fruit-flavored ice cream, but that's not accurate. Ice cream is mostly dairy with added flavoring, while sherbet, by definition, contains fruit first, with only a small amount of dairy added. That's why sherbet keeps its fruity character even with its creaminess. And then there's the idea that sorbet is automatically the healthier choice. But that's not always true. In fact, sorbet sometimes contains even more sugar than sherbet to prevent it from freezing into a rock-hard block. So the difference between the two isn't really about health. It's about their ingredients and the experience they deliver. Up next is the overall eating experience. Eating sorbet feels like a refreshing reset. It cools you down, wakes you up, and clears your palate. It's the kind of dessert you crave when the weather is scorching or when you want something bright and uplifting. It brings the freshness of fruit in the coldest, cleanest form. Sherbet, meanwhile, offers a different experience. It doesn't hit your tongue with the same level of iciness as sorbet. Instead, it glides in with a creamy smoothness that makes it feel cozy, even though it's still fruity and refreshing. It's soothing in a way that sorbet isn't, making it feel more like a treat than a refresher. Finally, we arrive at the big question: which one is better? Honestly, neither one truly wins. They simply appeal to different moods and different cravings. When you want a dessert that tastes pure, bright, and refreshing, sorbet is the perfect choice. But when you want something that feels soft, creamy, and nostalgic, yet still fruity, sherbet is the way to go. They're not competitors. They're two delicious branches of the same fruity family. One delivers crisp refreshment, while the other offers smooth comfort. So the next time you're browsing the frozen section and trying to decide between sherbet and sorbet, you won't have to guess. You know exactly what sets them apart. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other bingeable channels. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.